Hi, everybody. Ron Placone here, and you're watching another live edition of Media Bites. Now, one of the things that we talk about a lot on this channel, that's a big part of what this channel does, or what I'm trying to do with this channel, is talk about the media structure in the United States and kind of dissect it, see some of the things that are wrong with it. And every so often, I feel that it's important that we sort of just revisit the bigger problem, the idea of there is a problem with the media structure in this country, which is something that I feel very strongly about, and something that I studied media policy a good deal in college, and then later in my master's degree, and was going to go all the way and do the whole PhD professor thing, but decided I kind of wanted to do something out there in the world first, and because it's not a problem that a lot of people are hip to right away, because it's not necessarily a problem that you can see or feel. It's more a problem that you feel the effects of. I speak at colleges about these issues in a program I put together called Madness in the Message, and sometimes when I'm in those situations, when I'm showcasing at a conference or so forth, sometimes people don't really, off the bat, they're like, well, what is this about? What is this about the news? This is about this, and it's kind of a little bit of a. So a lot of times people think that I'm talking about social media when I say, oh, well, it's about the media, and some of the issues concerning the media. They think it's one of those social media things where I'm just going to get up there and be like, don't spend too much time on Instagram, kids. You got to study. And I don't know. Maybe I would get booked more if that was what I was doing, but that's not what I'm doing. So it's a problem that kind of you got to unpack a little bit, and it's not necessarily apparent. But the reason that the media is a problem is because of the model that they adhere to, and I say that the problem, there's a number of issues going on in the type of problem that this is. First of all, the problem of the media is one of the most obvious things, a problem of diversity. The media is not diverse at all. It is owned by a very small elite group of corporations, and that elite group of corporation kind of caters to other types, other powerful types, and that's why you see a media that's very reflexive of upholding the status quo, that's very kind of limited in the scope that they cover, and a lot of groups feel marginalized or left out of the conversation altogether in the media. And when you have such a skewed ownership, something like that is inevitable, and especially in an age of hyper consolidation like we have right now. And some people say, oh, well, the internet changed all that, and there's some truth in that. I mean, the internet has certainly helped, but it's not necessarily a fix-all by any means. We still face a lot of the consolidation issues that we've been facing prior to the internet being as prevalent as it is now. Another factor there is in the scheme of the internet. It leads to a whole type of other set of issues, such as broadband access and so forth, which is still a big problem here in the United States. So it becomes an economic issue, an issue of power, an issue of resources, when a lot of people still aren't even able to plug in. And of course, other policy issues that are going on now with net neutrality being threatened and something that we could lose in its entirely. There's some significant issues going on here. It's also a problem of economic and social justice, with people not having access, with people not being able to participate in the media conversation. And finally, it is just in the very nature of itself a political issue. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're part of some large democratic experiment, and we want to have this democratic society where people participate and people engage civically. Meanwhile, we have this media that is so limited in what they do, and the media structure here, the main corporate media is not focused on informing a populace or spreading ideas. It's focused on just making as much money as possible, and power and financial gain. There's nothing wrong with being financially sustainable, but when making money is your main priority, is priority number one, and I think that's pretty apparent. I mean, Jeff Zucker, Rupert Murdoch, those people make no quips about it. Making money is their main priority. They want to make the advertisers happy, and that's it. And when you have a structure like that, that's when you're more likely to not send someone out on the field to conduct true investigative journalism to save money. That's when you're more likely to cut a journalism department in favor of trying to make the shareholders happier. That's when you're more likely to maybe not talk about certain issues, maybe kind of push certain issues under the rug because it might not make the advertisers happy. That's when you're more likely to stay away from a certain issue because maybe it's a little harder to talk about and it's not as easy to hyperbolize and sensationalize, and it doesn't make as good clickbait. I mean, not too long ago, Jeff Zucker, president of CNN, was talking about why they don't do a ton on climate change, and he straight up said, because it's hard, because it's not necessarily a juicy click for people a lot of the times. We don't want to have that discussion because it's hard to have and it's not good for ratings, and so, oh well, we're just going to stay away from it. Well, sometimes if you want people to participate in a democratic idea, you need to talk about things that are hard. I mean, we want to live in a society where we want civically engaged people, but yet this is the media we have. I mean, that's like wanting a society where you want people to be able to cut down trees and you're handing them a toothpick and saying, here, go at it. So I would say we've reached a crisis mode. Now, the one bright spot, and I guess this kind of goes to some of the positive effects of the internet, is that people are sort of naturally starting to see through this, and especially younger people. That's why I love talking about these issues so much at colleges, because I mean, statistics show that younger people in this country, they're staying away more from TV news, and they're seeking independent sources, and they're going on media entrepreneurial ventures and being successful at it. That's happening. I mean, that's already happening. And they're also giving less credence to political punditry and stuff like that. The younger generations are seeing through the sensationalism, seeing through the hype and stuff like that. We have a long way to go. But there is some progress, and there's some reasons for a bit of optimism, because real change, change is one of those elevated God terms these days. Real change doesn't happen just when some kind of policy is just signed into place. In fact, when it comes to real change in the media, I think we're a long way off from seeing any kind of significant policy, because that's not what has to happen first. What has to happen first is that people need to demonstrate through their daily habits and their actions that the media structure that we have as a status quo is not working anymore. And people are demonstrating that by the way that they're kind of migrating to other places. And even this main corporate media is just becoming an echo chamber for the blogosphere. People are being the media. People are the first on the scene, and you have this instantaneous publishing platform. So I think we're in a transition period. And I think a lot of powers that be kind of realize that and probably don't like it all that much. So it's an interesting period that we're amidst, and I don't know exactly where it's all going to go, but what I do know is that we're already seeing some of those wheels turning where the people are standing up, and it seems like people are demonstrating through their daily habits that this whole hyper-consolidated media structure that just kind of caters to this homogenous middle, one-size-fits-all objective utopia, it's not working anymore. People are seeing through it. People are going elsewhere, or they're just being apathetic altogether and ignoring the news media because they're just tired of it, because they don't realize that people are trying to make it better and they're just washing their hands of it. I think we're suffering from a lot of apathy too, and I think part of the reason for that is because of the poor quality of the mass media that we have. But good things are happening. I mean, there's more investigative journalism going on, more entrepreneurial ventures starting. We're seeing a shift, but it's kind of hard to say what exactly that'll all look like or what type of new policy will be intact. I mean, sometimes people will ask me, they're like, well, what do you think? I mean, do you think there's going to be, policy out there that's going to kind of stifle the consolidation that's taken place and is starting to change all that? And honestly, I don't know. It's really tough to predict that, especially since if I had to take a guess, I'd say we're probably about 20 or more years away from any type of significant policy change. I mean, pretty much from 1996 until the present day, all the media policy changes we've seen in government have favored big business. It's very, the Telecommunications Act in 1996, and then more recently with the loss of net neutrality, and then of course other things like SOPA, other things that kind of creep their head in and then they get stopped, but they're still sort of lurking out there. So policy is a big part of it. Activism is a big part of it. Citizen journalism is a big part of it. Consolidation is a big part of it. And but I think we're in the mode. I think we've reached crisis mode, and I think that's why it's kind of a really cool. It's really a cool thing to be into these days, and I think that the media reform movement keeps getting stronger. The radical journalism movement keeps getting stronger. To learn more about those types of things, go to freepress.net, go to projectcensor.org, go to radiofreenashville.org. It's one of the places that I'm heavily involved with here in Nashville, Tennessee, where I live. The Prometheus Radio Project. You can learn more about media consolidation on the radio end of things. But I just thought it'd be fun on this Friday afternoon to revisit that problem. I kind of went on about it longer than I wanted to. I wanted to kind of be a bit more concise, but this is my field of study, and this is one of my passions. I mean, I really enjoy, talking about these things. So feel free to leave your comments below, and I think on this channel, maybe every 6 months or so, we'll do kind of like an introspection where we sort of explore the big arching problem of, okay, well, what's really the problem of the media? I do plenty of segments where I poke fun at a piece of journalism or satirize a piece of journalism or do, the thoughts rant segments and stuff like that. But there's also this, media lens here that I really like. And so I think maybe every 6 months or so we'll do an introspection where we just revisit the same question. What is the problem of the media? Because it's an evolving question, and it's a question that's always expanding and always changing, and then there's some good things and then some bad things. And it's a question that we're always going to have because it's never going to be perfect. But I think right now we can definitely do a lot better, and we're starting to shift in a better direction, and I look forward to seeing where all this goes. So on that note, have a wonderful weekend. And by the way, for anyone that's into the other stuff here, I am still doing the morning show, and we're going to incorporate that more into the YouTube channel. It's one of those things. We're still a very new morning show. We're still getting comfortable running the board and just doing the show each morning. It was a bit more involved than I realized it was going to be. So we're sort of just learning how to crawl before we learn how to walk, one of those types of things. And of course, for the YouTube thing, I need to find a way to make sure that none of our music breaks bleed onto the audio video and stuff like that, so that we don't get any copyright strikes or anything like that. Of course, on the radio show, we can play music, but for the YouTube show and for the podcast, we have to omit those music breaks or censor them somehow. So I'm still working all that out, and it's just one of those things that I just kind of got to take it one step at a time. But I will be incorporating the morning show into this channel more. It won't change anything. Stuff like this will still go on. Thoughts, Rants, and Cold Coffee will still be the same way. It's not going to change at all, because I know at one point I tried to do Thoughts, Rants in the studio, live, like in the radio studio, and it did not work that way. It's been a pre-recorded segment its whole life, and that's the way it should stay. When I did it live, it seemed really weird and unnatural. So don't worry, nothing's going to change. Everything that's going on now will still be there. There will just be more of it, and there will be more of kind of a day-to-day examination, because in the radio show we, of course, look at a lot more news stories, and it's more just, general talk of what's going on in the day. So I just want to let you know that will be happening, that will be going on. But without further ado, have a good weekend. Thanks for tuning in. You've been watching Media Bites, and this is Ron Placone signing out.